Cloudcast Media.
Drew Schlosberg Spotlight on the Community Show, amplifying the voices of social impact organizations, entrepreneurs, local nonprofits, and other community champions who shape the culture, creativity, and connectivity of San Diego. Brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union, bringing good things to San Diego for over 60 years. Learn more about what is good for you and good for all by visiting www.missionfed.com.
I'm Drew Schlosberg of Cloudcast Media. You can be listening to another edition of Drew Schlosberg Spotlight on the Community Show. We are the nation's longest-running community podcast in our 20th year, brought to you by the amazing folks at Mission Fed Credit Union, 60-plus years of just doing unbelievable things that are tied to these great causes in our region, whether it's food insecurity or whether it's the homeless or Alzheimer's or the arts, financial literacy. If there's a big cause, you can pretty much be sure the Mission Fed is going to be with everyone shoulder to shoulder. Such a great day for me because we get to interview this gentleman that has made quite a footprint since he came across our transom, so to speak, a few years ago, and that is Brandon Joe. He just graduated from UCSD, but you know him as a co-host of the Spotlight Show. He's a senior producer at Cloudcast Media. He does a whole bunch of stuff, and we're just thrilled to have him on the other side of the mic for once, and we'll chat with him. Brandon, how you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you doing, Drew?
I'm doing fine. Listen, for those listeners that don't know how you wound up at Cloudcast, maybe you can just do a little bit of a memory lane.
Alrighty. So back in my,
sophomore
year of college, I was running a nonprofit to teach students how to communicate through networking or storytelling in an event I called the Soft Skills Seminar. So it was going to be a 8-hour event that brought in, I think I brought in 42 different professionals, 20 for networking, 9 for the pitch competition, all sorts of stuff like that. And so I was looking around for people to bring in as volunteers. And so I was looking at our website. I'm a UCSD student, and we have a website that's the equivalent to LinkedIn called Triton Connect. And the person that was highlighted on there at that time was Neville Bemoria, beloved by Mission Fed, VP of Marketing. I think he's still VP.
He's the Chief Marketing Officer. He got a promotion.
Chief Marketing Officer.
Yes.
Now, I never got the update on that one. Oops.
See,
Sorry, Neville.
No. All good. It's all
so
good.
I cold emailed him at the time because I thought he was pretty cool. And so he, of course, met with me knowing Neville. And I talked with him like, hey, do you want to volunteer at my event? He's like, no, but do you want to be on a podcast? And I was a little shocked. I was like, okay, sure, why not? I show up, walk in with Neville Bemoria, and Charles Parisi, our founder and CEO, looks at me and he says, how did you get here? So I tell him the quick little story, and we get along. Drew interviews me, and at that time, I believe that you guys liked me or something. And so I was invited back on as a co-host for the next month because we didn't have one. And so I joined in for a month. Eventually, it was getting too much to Uber back and forth from UCSD, $60 every single time. I was like, Talked to Charles. He said we'll figure something out, and I just ended up producing the show. So that's how I got here.
Yeah, exactly. And then not just that show, but a whole bunch of others. And as Brandon continued to just do great things for Cloudcast, we had him involved with social media, everything else in between, and he'll be doing even more. But, besides the fact you were just, the things we marveled at was that you were the youngest greatest
connector. Young networker, as you guys called me back in the day.
You were.
Back in the day, as in 2 years ago.
Yes, but listen, it seems like it was, in some ways it was 2 decades ago, or in some ways 2 minutes ago. But talk about that, because you really took advantage when you would come in and co-host with me of the guests that we'd have on, which are pretty much C-level guests. And you were very interested in what they did. You asked some great questions. People said, my God, this guy is way beyond his age and all that. But one of my favorite stories is how you had gone ahead and, sort of got to know Angela Bass. Talk about Angela Bass.
That was fun. I originally heard her on the podcast back, I think, a year and a half ago at this point. And at the time, I'm still obsessed with education. I love it. And I was meeting with as many educators as I could to get more perspective. It's one of my dreams I always tell to people is I want to build a university one day. And so I don't know what it'll look like. I don't know what it'll be. I think that it'd be bold of me to say that I know what would be best in a couple of years, especially as the new generation of kids, and who knows how they're wired, are moving into our education system. We can already see we're struggling with them. And so I wanted to talk with some educators just to get more perspective. I've never taught, and I know Angela has, and I also know that she's been assistant superintendent of different school districts. She's been all over. So she set aside some time for me, lucky for me. So I asked her for some coffee, we chatted, and then started meeting pretty regularly at some point. I met her husband, Wendell, who is an amazing guy. I think he was the superintendent, he was the president of...
He was principal at Lincoln High.
Not president, principal at Lincoln High. Yeah. And I even got invited to one of Wendell's birthday dinner with his family, which was really funny. But it was a good time just to learn more about the world, and it's a great opportunity when I was just starting out in the professional world.
Yeah, Wendell and I and Angela have worked together 35 years ago at San Diego Unified. Been good friends ever since, and obviously because of the role that I've had over the years, continued to work with them, and that's who they are. The Basses are just great people for 65 different reasons, very smart, all very much student-oriented. And when you talk to them about it, they have every single student that came through their schools, on their minds.
Definitely. And they really care.
They do.
Because I remember Angela was telling me about how she set up the classroom based off of how the students wanted it before. She kind of did it on her own without running it through the district, and it was super successful because the students they sectioned it off into different areas so that students could learn how they wanted to learn. It's similar to the idea of the one schoolhouse back when education was just getting started in the United States. And it allowed the students to explore and love learning for what it was, a little bit more unstructured. And I think that's valuable.
Well, as you learned last week with Devin Vidishka and Katie Martin, two of the greatest educators in our country, who have set up the learner-centered collaborative, and that is growing by leaps and bounds around the country with the focus on, as it says, the learner. And, you sort of just described a little bit of that, what Angela did in the classroom with those folks.
Yeah, and as you always say, God forbid we actually cater our education to the students.
You've heard me say that how many times? 2 billion?
I don't even want to count.
Exactly right. But the bottom line is, and that's where, some of this reform will take place. And I know I've always been very appreciative that you've been very interested in the K-12 space, and I'm glad that worked out well with you. And Angela and Wendell. We're chatting with Brandon Joe. He's a senior associate producer for Cloudcast Media. I'm Drew Schlosberg of the Spotlight and the Community Show. I've been hosting this now for 20 years, nation's longest running community podcast, brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union. So, Brandon, you made a decision that when you graduated from UCSD, you were going to go spend some time in China.
It was a little bit before I graduated.
Was that right? Okay.
At the time, my dad was encouraging me to... Yeah. He worked very hard for me to get my college education. Even before he met my mom, he started saving money so that I could go to college and my sister could go to college.
Fantastic.
So he wanted me to stay for all 4 years. And hell, why am I going to turn that down? I don't want to start working. So I decided in my last quarter, since I was done with all my classes, to study abroad in China. Well, after a long deliberation, because I surprisingly was hesitant to go there.
Why?
Not necessarily because I was, how do I say? Part of it was I'm ethnically Chinese. I can't speak the language. I'm lacking in a lot of the culture. And I felt like when I arrived to China, I would just be seen as like a disappointment. It's like, oh, look at who's this Chinese guy? He kind of looks Chinese, but he's just not really Chinese, which did kind of happen because they just straight up didn't assume I was Chinese. I got called Japanese, I got called Korean a lot. And so that's probably just because the hair's got a little texture, and usually all their hair's straight.
Got it.
So I ended up pulling the trigger because I met a Chinese student at UCSD. He was an exchange, and at the time he was just going to UCSD to get easy A's, which is really funny.
How'd you get easy A's at UCSD?
He's, I don't know, Chinese guy. And so I was in class, and a professor asked us, turn to your partner and talk about the problem that's on the board. And I turned to a stranger on my left, and he was shocked. Initially, he was so shocked that he didn't speak any English. He can speak, but he just wrote it on a paper and showed it to me. And so we communicated, like I told him a little bit, and then he wrote on a paper to communicate. It was adorable. Eventually, we kept meeting in class, sitting next to each other, chatting, and learned his name was Orion. He moved from Jiaotong University in Shanghai, and I was his first foreigner friend. I helped him a ton with all of the different...
At UCSD?
Yeah, at UCSD. Well, I think in general.
Right.
And so I helped him a lot. He was a great guy. He just was the sweetest, really.
Right. Now, you understand the Chinese words spoken or not?
Now
Okay.
I can understand
But
more.
even before, not really?
No, not at all.
Okay.
My knowledge of Chinese extended as far as ni hao.
Yeah.
It's like,
So,
yes.
So anyway, when we come back from break, I want to talk about, okay, now you're on your 5-month sojourn to China. Think about that. We'll talk about some of the highlights, which you've been very magnanimous at talking about. It was pretty cool when we return with Brandon Zhou, Senior Associate Producer for Cloudcast Media, after this short break.
When you do your banking with Mission Fed, you get great rates on auto and home loans. That's good for you, but something good also happens for a lot of other people. We're not for profit, so we put money back into the community to help lots of great nonprofits to keep San Diego strong. So you're not just getting something good, you're doing something good. Come to Mission Fed. It's banking that's good for all.
Brand amplification is the DNA of Cloudcast Media, and our code is the powerful blending of sound, voice, and storytelling to lift local brands and their communities. Whether it is our Brandcast, Schoolcast, or Causecast platforms, the unifying ethos is all about this community, the one you call home. If you dare to dream and want to explore the brand amplification of Cloudcast, a national leader in local podcasting and other Winfluence strategies, please visit us at cloudcast.us.
I'm Drew Schlosberg of Cloudcast Media, listening to another edition of Drew Schlosberg Spotlight on the Community Show. We are the nation's longest-running community podcast in our 20th year, brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union, 60-plus years of doing great things for people living in San Diego County. We are chatting with Brandon Zhou, Senior Associate Producer for Cloudcast Media, on his sojourn to actually starting with Cloudcast Media as a sophomore, and then spent 5 months in China. And so, listen, we had talked about this, before you had left. You were doing your last quarter, correct? Mm-hmm. So getting some credit for that, even though you had actually graduated. Is that right?
Yeah.
In this aspect of it. All right. So were you nervous at all? And if you were nervous, why would you be nervous?
I was just terrified.
Because why?
You can't speak a language in a foreign place, and also...
You can't read it either, right? So
I can't read or write. I couldn't speak the language, and I was arriving at a place that I have roots in, but had no connection at all. I don't have any family there. We cut ties. It's a long story on both sides of my family,
right.
But
So you know no one.
I knew one, and except for the Chinese guy that I studied, or he studied at UCSD.
Right.
He encouraged me to go.
And he went with you?
He visited me towards the end of the program, and I visited his hometown.
But on day one, you don't know anyone.
Oh, no. I arrived, and immediately I was hit with the fact that I couldn't communicate to the front desk lady, and I didn't have a place to live because my I'm just being a little stupid, and I didn't sign up for my housing in time, and I had to pay at the front desk. But trying to communicate to somebody who at least is not able to speak English, even though we're at the international building, it's difficult. And also the stress of not being able to know that I'm not going to sleep on the streets of Shanghai. So one of my favorite jokes there, I was like, oh, I'm really going to get to know Shanghai tonight. So I didn't have a place to sleep. So there's that, and there's a bunch of other problems.
But you did get
Wi-Fi.
a place.
I did.
Okay.
I would have been. It could have been a great story if I slept on the streets, but oh well.
Well, maybe not either. So, so day one now, you're in your room, right? Mm-hmm. And now, what are you going to class the next day? Are you doing?
No, I had about 2 weeks before I was going to class. I did need to sign up, and there's orientation and all that fun stuff. But it was a great opportunity because there's one thing with study abroad is that you're not only there to meet the people from the country. You are an international student, and so you kind of get bulked together with all the other international students, and you guys get to know each other real well. Right. And now I have friends from Sweden, I have friends from Myanmar, I have friends from Colombia, I have friends from all over the world at this point, and that was an amazing experience, especially as an ignorant American who doesn't travel too much or talk to people outside the country. And so I got to know all of the inside jokes.
But so it's day 2 now, okay? And you haven't met these folks yet, right? And you're still in the same position you were on day 1, right? Mm-hmm. So you still can't communicate with anyone, is that correct?
No.
Okay, so what are you doing on day 2?
Trying to figure out how to buy food.
Okay. Right. But think about what a shock that is. You know, here you are. It's not like you're with the students right now, right? And you got 2 weeks with them before class starts.
Well, we had a group chat, so I immediately texted the group chat, hey, does anyone want to get lunch? And so
okay. And were they staying at the same place?
Yeah, they're staying in this. They're also students in my program. So lucky for me, most of the people who study abroad in China are Chinese, but live in a different country. So
how many of them spoke English?
All of them, all the ones that studied abroad, because it's kind of even people from other countries. Right. English is a universal language, right. And I'm so lucky that I'm able to speak it, or I think I'm able to. So
now you've done. And how long was the program?
The program overall?
Yeah.
5 months.
Right, but so when you started after 2 weeks, when the school started, did the rest of the program last the whole 5 months?
Yeah.
Okay, and then are you in class the whole time? Or are you doing traveling the whole time?
We had a gap of 2 weeks and at the beginning and a gap of 2 weeks at the end. I did a lot of traveling, and one of the places that I traveled to was my friend's hometown, which is in the middle of nowhere. It's a village called Ganyu, and I was just curious because I talked to a lot of people about the life in China. And one thing I was very curious about was what it was like in places like not the city.
In the rural?
Yeah, because I had a lot of friends that would talk very grand about China. I was like, I kind of want to figure this out myself. So I visited my friend's hometown and hopped on this bus, drove an hour out to a place that used to be more of like a village. For example, about 15 years ago when she was in middle school, their education building was literally a hut. It was one room with a thatched top, and so she showed me her books, and there's just water leaks or watermarks because the water would leak through the roof. But now when I visited, it's a full-size school. It's anything that you'd see in California, like a middle school or high school. And they built that in 15 years. She had her fair things to say, good and bad, about China overall, but this was something that was fantastic. In 15 years, they're able to modernize an entire town and be able to give opportunities to all the people around in the surrounding villages.
What surprised you the most about your 5 months in China? You're thinking about, I'm going to go to these places. I don't know anyone there. I might visit a village of a friend. Gee, I wonder what's going to... But did anything just jump out and said, boy, that really surprised me?
I think something that surprised me is culturally, the citizens of China and America are a lot more similar than I thought.
In what way?
They're both very outgoing. They'll ask questions to strangers, and it's not just because I was a foreigner. I mean, my Chinese friends, they're just very curious people. If we're speaking English in like a restaurant or bar, they would just walk up and ask us like where we're from. Or I saw like Chinese people striking up conversation with each other. They're very friendly. Well, okay, depends on the city.
Right.
When you get down to it, depends on the city, of course. But generally, they're just as hospitable as the person you find at like the Wendy's who you're just talking to at the front, at the cash register. They'll ask you a little bit. They just have that sort of I'm open to a conversation vibe.
And that surprised you a little bit. You thought they'd be more insular?
Yeah, a little bit. I visited Japan, for example, and those people will never strike up a conversation with you unless you talk to them first. So I was just very surprised because my first experience in China was first of all, getting a taxi there was really difficult.
Your first experience was trying to find a place where to sleep.
Yeah, but even before that, when I landed in the airport, I had no help trying to get to my university, and I had an app that was in Chinese, and I was trying to attempt to translate and read and get a taxi over. They would call me and be like, 你在哪儿? Like, where are you? I'm like, I don't know what you're saying. But eventually I got a taxi, but the first guy that I got the taxi with, he was like, you look really tired. Do you want a cigarette? I was like, sure. I turned it down the first time. I got used to it because I didn't know the culture at the time. They smoke a lot. And so, but they're just really friendly.
and was that your first cigarette in your life?
No, I smoked, in high school.
Yeah, well, you know what? It's okay. Don't worry. No one's going to find out on this. Listen, this is only going to be the first. This will be a 15-part series, by the way. Okay, we should
highlight some of the people doing good work in San Diego.
Yeah. Well, no. This is really this is very interesting because we've been following you on this, and I know Charles Parisi, the founder and CEO of Cloudcast, was communicating with you pretty much on a consistent basis while you were gone in this aspect of it, and we teased a little bit about how that would be in the Chinese government. But it worked out very, very well, and it was a great experience. Real quickly, did it change you at all?
Yeah,
how?
Absolutely.
How?
I think that I don't know if it was necessarily the country that I visited, but it was the act of going to study abroad. It's a place where you're in a new environment. You can do whatever the hell you want, basically. Not in the way of like being like an ass and like going around and calling people names and stuff, but as in a way you can rebuild your identity there. You can be, because you know that you'll know these people for a limited amount of time,
right?
That you can just be who you want to be. So I was pretty confident in who I was as a personality and learned that I operate a lot better when I release myself from the pressures of the perceived social pressures. I'm very sensitive to that stuff, and even when I got back to San Diego, I'm starting to lose it a little bit, but it helped me to get the perspective that I can be this way. I know it's in me, especially after experiencing it while abroad, so I'm trying to recapture that in my daily life.
No, I think that's fantastic. Would you go back?
Yeah, absolutely.
Same place?
Anywhere. I have friends all over China now, so I'd love to visit them wherever they are and however they might be at that time.
You mentioned earlier that you just are fascinated by education, as per the conversation with Angela and Wendell Bass. Mm-hmm. Would you ever think to go over there to teach?
That's a difficult question. I don't even think I can, because they changed the rules where you can't teach in China unless you are a citizen there. It was a recent change. And they used to have a bunch of foreigner teachers that taught English, but they just switched the system and all of them got kicked out, except for my one. Really, really funny. I met a French guy in, oh my God, I'm losing the name, Chengdu. And in Chengdu, they're super friendly. I met him at a bar, we were chatting, and he married a Chinese girl in the US, and then they moved to China. And so he was a teacher, an English teacher. And just from his experience overall, he's loves China. The most pro-China person I met in China, actually, which is really funny. And so he described his experience and like how the system works. And so knowing how that system works, it'd be a real pain to teach English there now.
Yeah, right,
So,
I got it.
Probably not.
Right. So last comment here. What advice would you give to somebody who is not quite sure if they want to visit China? Obviously, China's huge, of course, in that aspect of it, but we'll just say at least the experiences you have, and certainly you were doing this with study abroad. But what would you say to a person if they had any trepidations about visiting China?
Don't. People are people, regardless of where you go. Don't associate them with the country. There's people that are good everywhere. There's a spectrum of people everywhere. And so when you go to China, just keep in mind that it's just equivalent to, if you have a foreigner come to the United States and you don't speak the same language, but you can still communicate. You can still laugh together. There's videos online of people walking into random rooms in China and like bringing like pack of cigarettes, and all the uncles are like, "Yeah, we love you." It's the same thing anywhere. If you buy a round of drinks for someone in the U.S., they're gonna love you too. It's just people.
No, that's great. Well, Brandon, Joe, we're thrilled to have you back in stateside, so to speak, and working full throttle with Cloudcast Media. It sounds like you had just an amazing 5-month experience there that you'll take forever, and you'll make a return trip, and we're happy to have you back.
Appreciate it, Drew.
Absolutely. Brandon Joe, he's a senior associate producer for Cloudcast Media. I'm Drew Schlosberg. Listen to another edition of Drew Schlosberg Spotlight on the Community Show. We are the nation's longest-running community podcast. In our 20th year, brought to you by the fine folks at Mission Fed Credit Union, 6 decades of just doing spectacular work for some very important causes in San Diego County. And to our audience, we hope you enjoyed the interview.
You've been listening to an episode of Drew Schlosberg Spotlight on the Community Show, amplifying the voices of social impact organizations, entrepreneurs, local nonprofits, and other community champions who shape the culture, creativity, and connectivity of San Diego community. Brought to you by Mission Fed Credit Union, bringing good things to San Diego for over 60 years. Learn more about what is good for you and good for all by visiting www.missionfed.com.